Welcome back. I wanted to do an update on my 1964 Galaxie 500. Some of you may have seen the video I made, it was almost a year ago, where I got the car out of storage, and I started working on it. We checked the brakes. I fixed a couple of issues with the brakes. I fixed the shifter, and then we took the engine that was for it down in the machine shop. Then everything came to a screeching halt. Because why? The engine was in the machine shop. And if you've bought any parts lately for your cars, you know what I'm talking about right now in the last year of how hard it is to get things and the long waits. So, I wanted to do an update today to let you know what was going on. But first, let me backtrack a little bit. I bought this 1964 Galaxie pretty much exactly 3 years ago, right before Christmas, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Anyway, it belonged to a friend of mine. He got the car in a trade, and he wasn't really interested in it, and he was trying to sell it, and he tried selling it to me, and he gives me this price, and I say, it's a really cool car, but it isn't that cool, not at that price. And then he comes back and lowers the price again, and then finally he texts me one day when I'm at work, and he goes, give me this amount, and it was like $900. So, okay, I take it. And I didn't realize what he had done is that he had replaced the master cylinder in it, and he got the car running. Now, the car was what you call a barnyard find. Not a barn find, but a barnyard find. It was in a barnyard, sitting next to a barn, since 1983 until when I got it. It was originally built with a 352 4-barrel. Those were rated at 250 horsepower, and it had a 3-speed manual on the column, or 3 on the tree, as some people call it. And it had a 9-inch rear end, which they all did back then, the 64 Galaxie 500, and it was a 2-door sedan too, which is one of the things. Out of all of, I think they built 1.4 million Ford full sizes in 1964. Only 28,000 of them were 2-door posts, or 2-door sedans as they called them. This car is one of them. And here's a picture of the car, the way I got it when I first got it. Okay, that's what it looked like. It wasn't pretty. It had a ton of dirt in it, and I mean a lot. It spent its whole life driving up and down dirt roads, and it was not treated well. The interior was more brown than two-tone blue. It took me 2 weeks to clean the entire interior. But it did run, kind of. It kind of ran. He got it running. He put a new fuel pump on it. He tried to rebuild the carburetor. And he put a tune-up kit in it, points, plugs, that kind of stuff. And it ran for a while, pretty good, sort of, it ran. And then when I got it, I kind of got into it a little more seriously about it. I got the 352 to run really reliably. The auto leaker, as the Autolite 4-barrel carburetor, just was living up to its nickname, the auto leaker. It would run for a while, and then it would just drown the engine. And so I had to shut it off. I had to get rid of it. So I put a Holley 750 on it that I had lying around. And here's a video of me actually after I got the car running for the first time. Dust. Now, I drove the car like this. I also did the brakes, all the brakes, wheel cylinders, typical stuff that you'd have to do when you leave a car sit for 35 years. I also was able to find a 350 Posi center section out of a 1978 Ford van at the salvage yard. Paid $69 for it because that's what the self-service yard charged for a center section to a differential, $69. And it originally had a 325 gear with an open rear end. So going to a 350 gear wasn't really a big difference in gear ratio, but hey, positive traction. And I drove the car for the next year. I put 3,000 miles on the car. Now the problem with the car is it smoked bad. And as a matter of fact, it used a lot of oil. And here's a quick video just of the exhaust after I put new exhaust on it. And when you see the video of it, when you watch the video, watch how the smoke is just puffing out of it. Poof, poof, every time I rev it. I left dead mosquitoes in my wake every time I accelerated in that thing. And it went through about 2 quarts every 100 miles. I took it on tour Nebraska, and I got 18 miles per gallon driving it. And I went through a case of oil. I was running 2050 and a quart, so I ran 4 quarts of 2050 and 1 quart of Lucas oil stabilizer. And you know, if you ever know that thing's like molasses, in order to get the oil pressure up. But in the process, I was using a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it. I was buying it by the gallon, you know, like a gallon, like this kind of gallon, and just to put in there. And so next came, the engine started to die. And here's a video of what happened. The lifters started collapsing after a year and 3,000 miles. Not surprising after sitting for 35 years. So I found a 390, and we drove all the way to the other side of Nebraska to get this 390. And brought it home, and it looked like it was in really good shape, so I just dingle-balled the cylinders a little bit to get the glaze off, put new rings and bearings in it, put a cam in it, and I found a 428 Cobra Jet intake manifold. It's the iron high-rise one, the one that weighs like 85 pounds. I have that. I put a Holly 750 on it. I found some vintage valve covers, Cal Custom Vind valve covers on a Galaxie in the salvage yard of all things. And I also was able to put a 3-speed Hurst Indy shifter on the floor that I found in another salvage yard. And, well, I built the engine, and I went through all the trouble of putting the engine in, and then I got the cam brake in, and here's the video during the cam brake in. Now this is right after I got it running. That didn't sound too bad. What happened in 5 seconds after I shut the camera off was it went south. The engine started overheating badly, started running real badly, and it finally had to shut it off, and it wouldn't restart, and I had to take it apart. And it turns out that there's somehow some sort of abrasive material got into the engine and tore the bearings to pieces. And the bearing material it was so bad, the bearing material got into one of the lifters, stopped the lifter from turning in the bore, and it destroyed the camshaft, and then more metal and everything, so it was just a disaster. I was pretty let down. I had the engine sitting in the corner for 6 months. Now came the next engine I bought. I thought, hey, I would buy a new engine. I just buy one that's running. And by happenstance, I came across a friend of ours who had a 428 irrigation pump engine sitting in the back of his truck on the engine run stand for the irrigation pump. And it was running. And he wanted $1,200 for it. And I'm like, and when I saw that it had been rebuilt like 200 hours before he had bought it, because it said so right on it, and the hour meter matched it, which was still working, and I bought it, thinking, hey, I'll get rid of the 2-barrel, what was it, the propane carburetor. Yeah, the propane carburetor that was on it. I put a Holly 2-barrel that I found at a salvage yard, in the salvage yard. I picked up a 2-barrel carburetor off of some Ford there. Put it on there so it would run on gasoline. I got it started with the tractor exhaust that's on it. And it was loud, and I thought I heard something, and I had my friends come over, and they thought I was crazy. And they said, put it in and forget about it. And here's a video of it. Was right at when I was running it on that run stand that I bought it on.
Well, it's running. Yeah, I'm sure the neighbors love me.
Well, when I went to change the oil pan, because the irrigation engines, they had a 7-quart medium-duty truck oil pan on them, so they don't fit a car. And so I had a front sump oil pan. I went to put it on, and I reached my hand up in there. Something was bothering me. I thought I heard a rod knock. So when I put I put my hand up in there and I grabbed a couple of rods, and you hear the clanky, 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 and my heart just sunk again. It was like being kicked in the gut again. So now I have 3 dead engines in my garage. I bought a 4th engine as a parts engine because it had some parts I wanted. It was a 390. It had a brand new Collie carburetor, a brand new chrome oil pan. It had a bunch of other stuff. It had a 4-barrel intake manifold. It had a bunch of stuff on it, and I paid $300 for all of it. And so now I have a total of 4 FE engines in my garage. I went bananas. I had 4 of them. I had a 352, I had 2 390s, now a 428. None of them ran. So now I just I took the 428 apart, and I'm going to show you, and this is where we show you what happened when I took the 428 apart. Pay watch, this is what I found in the short block.
Got here is a 428 FE engine. I bought this. This was originally an irrigation pump engine. It had 200 hours on it, and it had tractor exhaust, which was so loud that I couldn't hear the rod knocking, which I think there was water in the oil, and yeah, that one's rocking a little bit too. And it knocked out a couple of the rod bearings. Right now we're going to find out what else is bad. I do have another crank for this. So, and this is eventually going to go into my 64 Galaxie that I have sitting outside. So once I get this back together and running, I'm going to put this in my Galaxie. So stay tuned for that. We got the mains off, all except the back one. And you can see you see how it's got that little bit of a line in it, but you really can't feel it. So The good news, the bearings all look like crap, and you can see rust on them, which, you know, as an irrigation pump engine sitting out in the field. But the good news is see, they're Clevite 77s, and they're standard. These are not oversized bearings, so you could take a Ford FE engine, crank 40 over with no problem. Hell, Summit Racing stocks 40 over bearings. I wouldn't do it on a Chevy, but so far the mains look okay. They have the line of there where the bearing groove is at, but you can't feel nothing. Usually the farther you get away from the oil pump, the worse things get. I got the number 1 and 5 rods off, and you can see the number 1 looks bad. It definitely needs to be turned there. And you can see the bearings are just rusted to shit. There's nothing left of them. Excuse my French. And this is the weird thing. They've replaced the pistons and the rings, but the pistons, they never bored the block. They just dingle balled it and put it back together. So you can see they're brand new pistons, and it says standard L2245s. I think these are like, I'll have to look them up. I think there might be just your standard tier W's or seal power pistons or something. And the rings look good. And and the bearings are Clevite 77s, and they're standard on the rods too. So this crank may be savable. So far, we'll see what we come up with more. Yeah, I haven't even knocked this one loose. You can see it. So you know the bearing's completely trashed on this one. Yikes. That does not look... Yeah, well, I've seen a lot worse. Let's see what we get on the other ones. Here. I haven't even loosened this one yet. That is a little bit too much clearance in your bearing. Just teensy-weensy bit. If you do this, and your rods are either not torqued or your rod bearing's completely trashed. Well, I got the rod cap off on, that's number 6. Yeah, number 6. And the bearing's turned. You see that there's the tabs for where it's supposed to be at where the rod and the rod cap meet. That tab is worn off. And it's completely smoothed off. So it spun the bearing. That's what it definitely did. This is what it looks like when you spin a bearing. And oh man, that's not really grooved that badly. Let me look at the other one when I get this rod out of here. I don't know if you can see how thin these bearings are. They are through the copper, through the top layer, through the copper, all the way down. They're like paper thin, which means they're complete junk. Obviously, they're complete junk, but amazingly, the crank looks bad on camera, but if you run your fingertip on it, yeah, it definitely needs to be turned. There are grooves in it, but they're not like a 1/4 inch deep where you basically have a boat anchor for a crank.
So how far can you safely turn a crank? I mean,
well, Ford FE engines, 50. No, I wouldn't go over 40.
okay.
I've heard a lot of experts say you can, it depends on the engine really, but Ford FEs, you can do 50,000.
And you can get away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Summit Racing stocks 40,000 over bearings. And when we worked at Marshall Engines, the old bill of materials for FE engines said you could go up to 50,000 over.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So, So they would do it over 50,000s at Marshall, but that was as far as they would go. But it's like a Chevy engine. You're at 30, you're done.
You're done. Yeah.
Chevy small block, Chevy big block. 20 is fine. 30, okay, but anything, it's finished after that.
Anything over that.
Yeah. So it all depends on the engine type. So. Brisky. Yeah. So as I feared, see how number 7 is. It's not bad looking, and then you get to number 8 where it was obviously rod knocking, and it's definitely grooved. But if these are standard bearings like I think they are, then I think we'll be okay. Doesn't really matter. I already have a crank that's already turned, ready to go in. I already have a bearings ordered. But I have a 390 over here, which I think the crank is trashed. And a 428 crank, 4-inch stroker crank, and a 390 makes it a 410.
That sounds right.
I think you can use the same rods, the 390 rods. A 428 crank and a 390 with the 390 rods is a 410.
It's a 410. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust you on that. I'm not a Ford guy, so.
I have to double check.
All right. Now we're here almost a year later. We took the engine, the 428 block, to the machine shop. And it kind of got put on the back burner by the machine shop because a lot of the farmers had brought in their irrigation pump engines. And they were screaming about their irrigation pump engines all last summer. And so they kind of got precedent. And I was still trying to find a set of pistons for this thing. Trying to find pistons in stock. They weren't any stock. The only things I could find in stock were like 12.5 to 1 compression or like 8 to 1 compression for 428 with the heads I have. And my good friend, whose name is Chad Reynolds, you might know Chad Reynolds from Bankshift.com, and he's on Rocky Mountain Race Week, and he does the live feeds for the Rocky Mountain Race Weeks. He put me in contact with UEM Pistons, and UEM Pistons has a lot of brands under their names, but one that I was talking with is Icon, and they had a set of pistons in their catalog that were 9.8 to 1 compression with my heads, which is what the engine was originally with the heads that were on it on the 428 as an irrigation pump engine. So I got those ordered. That was, in July or August. Yesterday, I finally got notice that my pistons are done. My pistons and rings. Steve at UAM has hooked me up with a set of pistons and rings for this 428. My block is done, finally. They bored the block 30 over. They honed it. They decked it. They line honed it, which is something you've got to remember. Line honing an FE engine, absolutely imperative. You do not build a 390 or 428 or any FE engine without checking that line hone, because they're always out of whack. And that's how I screwed up bearings in my 390. That's how the bearings were screwed up in the 428 too, because it was not line honed. Now it's line honed. Yes, I have a 428 crank over there that is not destroyed. It's ready to go. It's already machined. It's already turned. It's ready to go. So now all I have to do is, once I get the pistons in, I got to take my crank. He already has my rods and my old pistons, and he already resized my rods. My machine guy, Dan is a local guy here in town at a place called K&K Auto Value, and the old school machine shop. And I'm going to have him balance the rotating assembly and put the pistons on the rods for me. Unless they're full floating pistons, then I'll do it myself. I don't remember if they were. I'll have to look at it. I'll look at the pair part number again. So that's where we're at now. We are almost ready to assemble a 428. Minus I haven't got a camshaft picked out, though I've talked with some guys who are, and we're probably going to go to something old school, like a Comp Cam's 280H Magnum, 280 Magnum Comp Cam. Some of them suggested the solid roller, the solid lifter, old school, and it's a flat tappet. And don't get me wrong, everybody freaks out about flat tappets. I've never had an issue with Comp Cam with their lifters. Breaking the cam properly, you shouldn't have an issue. Anyway, we're going to put that together. And I'm hoping to get myself a 4-speed to replace the 3-speed. I don't know. It's tough. There's a guy in town who's got a couple, but he's so worried about these other things right now, it's hard to get a hold of him, and I can understand what's going on with him. Anyway, so this is where we're at. This is where we're at. I am actually about to get my engine finished machining, and I'll be doing the assembly myself here in the shop, and I'll have videos of me doing that for you. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you continue to watch. And if you like these videos, please like and subscribe. It allows me to do more of these. I got more work to do on this, and if you haven't looked over here, my GMC is in pieces still. We are working on that right now. The cab is at the shop I work at, which is the Muscle Car Factory, and we almost got the cab. It's ready to be painted. The floors are fixed. The rockers are fixed, and then this is going back to the rest of this truck is going to go back there, and we're going to blow this all apart. While the bed's just sitting on the chassis right now. It's not even bolted on. It's just gravity holding it on. Well, we got plans for the rest of it, and I'm going to keep you informed. Don't worry about that. I've already videotaped a bunch of stuff for it, and those videos will be coming up. If you want to see, check out my last video, and that's the video of this truck getting the rust repair done on it, and some of the other projects we're working on at that Muscle Car Factory. So thanks a lot for watching. Like and subscribe, and thank you.